from Jamaica or from other
Well,
islands there?
our families were our parents were from all over the West Indies. Brinsley's parents came from Guyana. Angus's parents,
Jamaica
or Dummy Zeb as we call him, his parents came from Grenada. My parents were from Jamaica. I think George Oban's parents were from Jamaica as well. So we were scattered, we were from all over the West Indies.
All over the West
Caribbean.
Indies. All right, all the Caribbean islands, eh?
Yes.
All right. Most of your band members are no more there. You are the only living legend who is there. Which artist are you working with at the moment?
Well,
which other band members?
Over the years, we've worked with many people. Bob Marley was one of our biggest influences. I mean, when I first saw Bob Marley, that my first impression was, yes, I wanted to do what he was doing. So for a lot of the band members, we grew up here in England. So as musicians, we listened to everything. We were listening to Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, even, down to the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson, Burning Spear from the West Indies, Dennis Brown, and even some of the English artists as well. We grew up at the times of the Beatles, Rolling Stones. So all those influences, we couldn't get away from them because those were the influences we grew up on. So if you ask the influences, it was everything. It was everything that we would listen to.
All right. So you put a little bit of R&B and soul music in your music there.
As everyone, I mean, music is music. Wherever styles or whatever influences they come from, everything is called music. Whether it be African, whether it be Afrobeat, whether it be garage, whether it be house, whether it be reggae, whether it be bashment, it's all music. So the influences come from everywhere. So at all times, your ears are always open and you're listening to everything. So when you go to create, obviously a lot of those influences will come through. Even if you listen to Bob Marley and the Wailers or enough of the artists from West Indies, they were listening to things that were coming from all over the place as well. If you go back in the Wailers' time, if you listen to a lot of the harmonies, then they were listening to Curtis Mayfield and Temptations and all those old time artists that were there at the time, because we were all listening, and that's how it goes.
All right. So
each one feeds each music feeds each other's music. Each generation feeds the next generation.
You listen to all kind of music,
yeah? Yeah. We've been to Africa. We listen to a lot of African music too.
African music.
And here in England now, the African music has really taken form, really taken the music business by storm. We have a lot of the population here in England right now is very diverse. We have people from all over the world, who congregate here in England. And when you hear to music now, we've always said that, what we heard in our early days, it influenced us, and what the youths heard from us influenced them. And when you put all the music together, a lot of the music is taken from what was gone from before. Even styles of music. When some of the new generations hear them, they think it's something new. But you go back in time and you can pick things from all different music.
So Bob Marley was the greatest inspiration to your group, eh?
Well, one of the biggest influences. It wasn't the only influence, but one of the biggest influences. Yes.
Yes. All right. Now, how many albums do you have at the moment?
That's very hard to count.
I think there are more than 20 albums.
There must be. We must have at least, at my last count, it's probably about 30 albums we had since the time we've been around.
You also won the Grammys there as the group ASWAD there. How many Grammys did you win?
Well, we were nominated for quite a few Grammys. We even visited the Grammys in America. And over the years, a few reggae artists have been nominated for Grammys, and a couple of reggae artists have received Grammys. In England, we have another our Grammys is called the Mobos, or we have the Brit Awards. So we've been to many of the award shows over the years. Over the years, because we've been around for so long, yeah, we have visited many of the awards. And for us as like the first generation of the generation who came from the generation who came over to England and settled here and had their kids here in England. Yeah, it's when we see the growth of where that first seed started from, and when you see what it is now, it is very fulfilling.
Now, who named the group ASWAD? Who came with the name ASWAD from your group members?
Well, in the beginning, it was, Brinsley Ford, Joe Joban. Yeah, they were the two main influences at the time. And yeah, when the band started, they were looking for a name that would represent what we were about, basically. And ASWAD, they found ASWAD in a book of names, basically. And when they realized that the name ASWAD stood for Black, well, we were a Black generation growing up in England, which was predominantly white at the time. And yeah, the name ASWAD just seemed to fit the picture.
So are there any collaborations that you have made with other artists there in UK?
Oh, we've worked with many artists. We've probably remixed a couple of Bob Marley's early songs in the early days. We've worked with many artists over the years. To mention, I mean, we've been to Jamaica. We've worked with Bunny Wailer. We've worked with Peter Tosh. I remember we meeting Bob Marley here in England when he was recording here in England too. So I've been to many of his shows. It's so many people to mention. We've been on stage with Stevie Wonder. We were there at Live Aid. Yeah, just too many to mention. It's just in that 30 years of working with different people, because like I said, the influences are wide. So yeah, you call names right now. There's loads of names you could call, but yeah, we've worked with many people. The melting pot is a big pot, man. And when you're cooking food, there's many different spices that go in. And in our music, there is many different spices that go in to make up that one pot.
All right. You even backed Burning Spear when he was there in 1977.
Yeah, in the early days of Burning Spear, ASWAD played on stage with Burning Spear. I personally wasn't one of the musicians who played on live, because Burning Spear came over to England in the early, I would check, that was early 70s, early 80s. And he needed a band to play with him on stage. And yeah, the original lineup, yeah, they played on stage, on a tour with Burning Spear.
All right. I can see that you can play keyboards, you can play guitar, and you can even sing at the same time. How do you do that? You're multi-talented, Kingman. You're multi-talented, really.
Well, in the early days, you want to play music, and you're trying to find ways of fitting into different bands or what's going on around the areas or whatever. So in my early days, my brother used to play. My younger brother, I remember buying a bass guitar for him. So it was in the house. At the time I was playing keyboards, but every now and again I'd pick up the bass just to play around with it. And, in our school that we went to, because Brinsley went to the same school, in our school, we had a good music department in our school. So, I remember in my school, I used to play in the brass band. We had a steel band in our school that we used to play. So I used to play in the steel band too. And then my dad used to play guitar when he was at church, because, I come from a church background. So my parents went to church. My dad used to play guitar in church. So that's where I picked up all those influences. And then later on, I met George, because I knew George Obel again from school, who was the original bass player. And me and him used to play in the church for the accompaniment for the church at the time. So, just, you don't know where you pick these things up. It just happens, basically. So yes, some would say yes, I play keyboards because I was the original keyboard player. Then when George Oban left, the band, we couldn't really play without a bass player. So I was already playing a little bit of bass, and they said, "Well, boy, you pick up the bass then." And yeah, that's where I started playing bass. So from there on, yes, and every now and again, as you know, computers play a big part in music these days. It's not the greatest invention for music, but you have to go with the times. So a lot of people now, they sit in their houses and they have computers where you can play guitar, you can play a bit of drums, you play this, and those where all those things come from. So yeah, when you ask me, where did I learn those things? It's just you pick these things up along the way.
All right.
And
All
by
right.
by listening to what you hear on the radio and on sound systems, you know, we grew up with a lot of sound systems here in England. You know, Coxsone, Shaka, loads of different sound systems. So, and in the early days, that's where we used to go and hear reggae music, you know, in these dances with the big sounds, with the big sound system, big speakers, heavy bass. And as kids, this is where we used to go and listen to reggae music. And yeah, you can't but not be influenced by that.
All right. So are there any groups that are under your belt that you are grooming?
Well, by what we did, you know, the next generation, they were influenced by what we did. So without personally grooming anyone, they listened to what we did. And, you know, as we did in the early days, where we listened to what was coming out of Jamaica and the rest of islands around the Caribbean, which is what influenced us to start. The same way that what we did afterwards, the next generation, they were influenced by what we did too. So without personally grooming them, you can say that, yeah, we, you know, from that point, yeah, there's many different bands around now. I mean, when we listen,
imitating you.
Well, yes, it's not just here in England, it's around the world. Because when we first started, reggae music wasn't really played in many different countries away from probably Jamaica, here in England. And, you know, as West Indies, we all spread out. So a lot of West Indians went to America. So you would have had bands in America that play reggae music. But if you mention reggae music now, you can mention reggae music in any country around the world. And you'll have bands in those countries that are playing the music too. You know, we live in Europe, you know, England, you know, nearest to us, you have Spain, you have Portugal, you have Poland, you have loads of different places. And all those places have reggae bands. And yeah, we go as far as Japan. You go to Japan and they have reggae bands. So, you know, you can see where, you know, that whatever that first seed was that planted that seed that made that grow, you can see where that is, where how far it has spread. So yeah, it's not just here. It's not even in South Africa. You must have loads of reggae bands there too. So yeah, that's how far, you know, the inspiration has spread.
All right. There's a reggae sunsplash that usually happens there in the Caribbean islands. Do they usually invite you to come and perform there?
Well, you know, the name Reggae Sunsplash, I don't know if the actual what we knew as the Reggae Sunsplash was a tour that was created in Jamaica by I forget his name now, and it used to tour the world basically. So we were invited as an English band to go and join the tour and tour around, you know, America. It was mostly in America, then it spread to Europe. It used to come to Europe as well as Reggae Sunsplash, the name Reggae Sunsplash. Now, you know, the names might have changed, but there's many different reggae tours, as you would say. All right. The name Sunsplash, it was a particular tour that used to happen. Yeah, the original man who created the Sunsplash reggae tour, he's not alive now. So but I suppose the name Reggae Sunsplash, yeah, you could put it to a lot of different things. But yeah. So yeah, in those early days, yeah, we've done that tour quite a few times. You know, we went to America, toured in America with Reggae Sunsplash. And Reggae Sunsplash was a tour that basically had, you know, many different artists, you know, touring on the one banner, and basically went around America and influenced a lot of other people to, you know, enjoy reggae music and play it as well.
All right. So is there anything that you're doing to encourage the youth to follow to the right direction?
Well, you know, we write songs, and songs
music.
songs, you know, songs and lyrics are a big influence. And yeah, you know, it was things like, it was lyrics that we heard coming from Jamaica, even though we'd never been there in the early days. And, you know, they told us about, you know, our history and what happened in the West Indies. And because of what happened in the West Indies, it made you go out and go and search out some more of the history. And then, you know, we discovered Africa and the history of Africa, and where a lot of our parents and forefathers and everything came from. So just by, you know, in the early days, I used to call what we heard from Jamaica lyrically, I used to call it a newspaper, because that was our newspaper. That's what we listened to. And when we heard about certain things that happens, it created that picture in our head, and then it made you go into your books and go and try and search out some of the things you heard about. So as far as influence goes, yes, those influences, they will, you know, the next generation, they will pick up those influences too. And when you get inquisitive, because as youths, you are inquisitive and you want to find out, well, when a man talks about Gully Bank, or he talks about a jungle, well, in England, we don't really have jungles, but you hear the word jungle, you say, what is a jungle? And then you go and find out, and you go in your books and you go and search out what is a jungle. Then you find out, all right, then that's what a jungle is. And many other things. You know, we heard about certain things that happen in Jamaica, and like I said, we've never been there, but you want to know. So you look in your history books and you start searching out these things. You know, how did we know about apartheid in Jamaica, in South Africa? How did we know about Nelson Mandela? This is all things we heard about on records. And because we heard those things, you know, you wanted to know exactly what they were talking about. So, you know, you searched out newspaper, you searched out videos, whatever you could find, and you read and you learned about them. And because you read and learn about them, then of course, when you start writing songs and everything, those things appear in songs because you're talking about what you see and what's around you.
So have you ever set your foot here in Africa?
Yes, we have. We've been to many places in Africa. We played in Kenya. We've played in Kenya. We've played in Uganda. Personally, I've never been to South Africa, but yeah, we've been to Africa. We've done gigs in Africa. And before I even went to West Indies, before I even went to Jamaica, the first place I went to was Kenya. Uganda. Never been to Nigeria. I would love to go to Ghana. You see, Africa is a big place, a really big place. Where we live here in England, and we talk about Africa, England is like a speck. It's like a little speck when you talk about Africa. And when you look around Africa, you know how big that place really is. Yeah, and my first experience of Africa, when I arrived in Kenya, my first morning, and I looked at the place and found out how beautiful it was, and how beautiful Africa was. Because when we were growing up here in England, you know, the news, our teachings of Africa in the very early days wasn't something that sounded very nice. So we had to go there first before we understood exactly what was going on. And when we saw Africa, we couldn't believe how beautiful Africa was. So, like when I went to West Indies after that, it was like, oh, well, the West Indies is just like Africa then. We have sun, we have fruits, we have beautiful trees, we have beautiful sceneries, we have flowers. And yeah, you have to go before you can talk about these things. You know, reading them about a book or someone telling you is not the experience. Unless you go, you can't take in that experience without visiting and seeing it for yourself.
Yes. So since the original members are not there, the original members, band members, so is it not difficult to start new members now?
Well,
for
you
your
see, when I say original members, we've been around for a long time now. This, we started out in 1976 was the first single.
Yes.
So when you take that time, last year, last year, September, we lost, he was my best friend basically, and that was Drummy Zeb, who was one of the main singers in the band, and he was a drummer as well.
Yes.
He passed away. And that is just time. That's just what time does. Nothing stays the same over the years. So what does stay the same is that the songs are there, and those will forever be there. When Bob Marley's been gone probably nearly 30 years now, probably a little bit more, and his songs are still playing now. So for us, the songs are still there, and anyone who will come to an ASWAD gig, the original members are not there. I am probably one of the ones that are left now.
Yes.
Brinsley's still alive. Brinsley's out there doing his thing as well. So, but many bands who have been out there, you will find that many of the bands, if you go back to when they were playing 40 years ago, you look at them now, yes, many of the personnel would have changed, but the music is still the same.
Yeah.
All right. So, some of the band members, we have a different drummer now, we have different keyboard players, but we are playing the same songs that we had from those days. So anyone who knows the band and comes to the concerts, they will hear the same influences or the same vibes then, because I still carry that vibe. People ask us, what makes you last so long? What makes you still do what you're doing? We do it because it's something that you enjoy and you love doing. Somebody asks me, what's the best part of being a musician? For me, the best part of being a musician is going out and playing live on stage and having an audience in front of you and seeing that vibe you get from the audience when you're playing the songs that they love.
As a great deal legend as you are, is it not difficult to compose some of the songs there, man? Like, you see, you have many good songs like Lift Up and others, Don't Turn Around, all those tunes.
Yeah,
is it not difficult to compose those?
Well, I mean, it's when you say it's not difficult, because in the sense, when we created those songs, they were created in a time. And now we're in the year 2023, then you're going to create something that creates that vibe that's around you now, just like when Bob Marley created his songs in his times. So if Bob Marley was around now, I'm sure he would still be writing. It might sound slightly different, but because the times change.
The times changing.
Instruments change, the equipment changes, the sound might change, but you're still creating something. You might have built a house in 1930s. We're in the year 2023 now. You're going to build a house. Basically the house is the same thing, but you built it now. So you're using the materials that you have now. So when you're creating, you're just creating from what's around you at that time. And because what's around you at that time, it will take on the feelings of that time. Some of the songs we wrote in the early days, we probably wouldn't write those songs now because times are different. So your influences are different, but the message is still the same. Life is still the same. We still talk about, what affects you in life. What are the things that help you become a better person? What are the things that make you happy? What are the things that you can pass on to your kids to make sure that they understand what life is? And those are the things you write about, and those are the things that will influence you.
So that means you have to change with time, see?
Well, you are living the times.
That is true.
If you were doing your job, what you're doing now, the equipment around you, if you go back 40 years ago, you wouldn't have that computer that's sitting on your desk. It would have been something else.
That is
you
true.
Understand me?
Yeah,
that microphone that you have in front of you, it would have been a different microphone. But this that whole the same thing of being able to talk to people, the equipment might change, but you're still doing the same job now. And it's just that the things around you have changed. So it might feel slightly different, but that message is still the same.
Let's hope one day you'll come and visit South Africa and perform here.
We are ready to come to South Africa anytime anybody calls us to come. Yeah, so just tell your promoters we're there, we want to come. I mean, everywhere we go, we enjoy. And South Africa is one of the places we have read about and heard about for many, many years. So we only have great things to talk about, South Africa.
So your last words to the listeners of VCRFM and the South Africans in general.
Keep your struggle going. You're not alone. There's many people around the world who listen to what you have to say. And as a band called ASWAD, we are willing to come at any time. Yeah, keep strong, keep singing, keep living, and be positive.
No, give thanks still, my elder. Enough respect.
Respect, bro.
All right. Simba makolo hlobo ke mphulaphuli we VCRFM sizamkhupha ke ngengoma yakhe ASWAD phaya ethi Don't Turn Around.
All good, Bongo?
If you wanna leave, baby, I won't beg you to stay. And if you wanna go on, maybe it's better that way. I'm gonna be strong, I'm gonna be fine. Don't worry about this sideline. Walk out the door, see if I can go on and go now. But don't turn around, because you're gonna see my heart breaking. Don't turn around, I want to see it from you. Just walk away, tell me about that you're leaving. I'm letting you go, and I won't let you go. Arms around me, holding me tight. And if you ever think about me, just know that I'm gonna be alright.